Senator Inhofe, it's a new day in Washington, D.C., so to speak, with the new administration. What does this mean for farmers and ranchers?
You know, it is a new day, and I can't think of any group that you could single out that's going to be a greater beneficiary of this change, this overhaul, this change in government. You know, we've gone through, and I don't say this critically of Obama, because liberals love to overregulate. I mean, that's what they do. And they think all power should be in Washington. And if you think about the problems, when I talked to Tom Buchanan, he'll talk about how serious problems that farmers have. But he says the greatest problem is the overregulation by the EPA. And that's when he singled out of the regulations of the EPA, the one that was most onerous was the regulation on water, to take it out of the state jurisdiction, put it in the federal jurisdiction, which is always what liberals want to do. Now, that being the case, every farmer and every rancher in my state of Oklahoma would have another whole bureaucracy crawling all over just to see, you know, after a rain, if there's enough water out there to declare that it's now a wetlands, and that probably would be the case. So the overregulations, the Clean Power Plan, that would constitute the greatest tax increase in recent contemporary history. And so we avoided that very narrowly by electing Trump. He was not my choice to start with, but let me tell you, we dodged a bullet, because I can assure you that if Hillary had won, we would have had the same appointments that Obama had, and that would be the final. I mean, that would be the end of Second Amendment rights. That'd be the end of First Amendment rights, and it would change America as we know America.
For sure. So you've worked, not even before Trump got into office, against burdensome regulations like WOTUS and the Clean Power Plan. How will their repeal help farmers and ranchers and just U.S. citizens?
Well, first of all, let's start with the water. I mean, that's a huge one, because that is what affects every farmer. You know, I was out twice during the wildfire out there, and as tragic as that was, that's out in western Oklahoma. That's in an arid part of Oklahoma. And yet, I can assure you that if they'd been successful in the regulation called WOTUS, Waters of the United States, and if we hadn't had a change in administration, that would be declared a wetland, because that's what they tried to do to get more and more control in Washington. Then that's just one, that's the wetlands thing. Then you have all the other, look at endangered species. Right now we're going to overhaul that. Why should anyone out there plowing a field be concerned about some bug down there called a burying beetle? No, you shouldn't be. And yet, you know, we've had almost 1,700 declarations of endangerment, and only 47 have been changed. So it's easy to declare something, but it's hard to get rid of it. It's just kind of the way government is. So that is a major problem that farmers, not just in Oklahoma, but throughout the United States have. Then the overregulation on the Clean Power Plan. The Clean Power Plan would mean that we would be, our president at that time, Obama, committed that he would have a 27% reduction in CO2 by 2030. Well, there are three problems with that. Number one, it couldn't be done, because even the EPA said it couldn't be done. Number two, if it were done, it would only affect America. It wouldn't have any effect on the CO2 emissions worldwide. And number three, the United States Supreme Court is on our side on this. They agreed with us. And that was, you know, so if they hadn't, then that would be an additional huge tax increase. Now, when I say that, I'm talking about everyone who's watching this now, or the average, let's say, farmer and rancher who files a federal income tax return. It'd be about $2,000 a year. And you get nothing for it by their own admission. And so those are some of the regulations that we're successfully have either overturned already, or because we've done 8 of them so far, or we'll get the rest of them later.
That's great. Senator Inhofe, infrastructure has been one of President Donald Trump's main priorities. And in Oklahoma, we're looking at an estimated $82 billion of infrastructure needs in the next 50 years. So how can we, as Oklahoma Farm Bureau, work alongside the new administration to improve our water?
You guys have already done that. You know, I've chaired this committee called Environment and Public Works for 12 years. And we had a major bill that was passed. It's called the FAST Act, and we just passed it this last year. It was the first reauthorization since 1998. And so that's you'll see the results of that. But that's just highways, that's just transportation. And infrastructure goes far beyond that. And that's what we're going to be working. So we're going to depend on you. The figure $1 trillion has been used. Well, that's kind of it's probably not far, it's probably a conservative figure. But one thing about the president, he knows how to put things together. They say he's a deal maker, like that's negative. Well, I'm kind of glad we got a deal maker in there. He's going to be able to do these things. He's talking about public and private partnerships. He's talking about how he would do this in the private sector. And you know, you guys are the largest single group that's out there that can help us as these things come up, and not just in Oklahoma, but throughout America.